A good wildlife or animal photo in general can absolutely stun your audiences and viewership. But not if what comes out of the camera is a little disgusting with extremely blinding lights and bad colors. Now that is nothing that can't be changed though. So if you want to turn your wildlife and animal photos into dark, moody eye catchers, let me bring you into Luminar Neo and show you how I did it in this case. I don't actually know what that animal is. It's not a bison. Tell me if you know. So here's our terrible light photo in Luminar Neo. First, we have really bad highlights, so let's start by evening the image out a little bit. We use the develop module to start with. Let's bring down our exposure and also our highlights. This will result in a really dark photo, so let's bring that shadow slider all the way up to recover some of that detail. Don't worry, there will be more light later again. We do want the attention to be on the subject, so our wildlife, but the grass is currently so bright that it's catching all the attention. Let's use a color adjustment and fix that. We want the whole image to have a sort of red, moody, dark brownish tone to it. So let's start by reducing the saturation of everything except yellow, orange and red completely. And also, of course, except green. Let's keep a little color in that one, so it's not just gray. The greens are still too bright though, so let's switch to luminance and tune down the greens a lot, maybe to around -75. This takes a lot of the attention away from the grass, which is great. Now, lastly for the step, let's bring down the hue for the greens a bit as well, to turn the image more orange, which is more in line with the color theme that we want to have for our image. We don't really have the right color yet, so let's use a toning adjustment. With that, you can add specific colors to the highlights or the shadows, which is widely used by many photographers to create any kind of specific look. In our case, we want to introduce some red tones to our image, so let's increase the saturation to say 65 and choose a nice red. This is actually nice. So let's switch over to the shadows, increase the saturation to whatever, just so we see what actual color gets added, and also choose a nice red. We can use the same hue, but once we have it, we want to reduce the reds in the shadows a lot. Now we actually have a good color basis, so let's take a bigger step towards awesomeness. For that, we need a vignette. Let's make it quite a strong one, as we need to make sure we draw the viewer to the subject. We can add a little feather, but the most important thing is to bump up that inner light. This will light up the center of our vignette, and that's where the people will look. The location of our vignette is off though, so let's hit choose subject. So let's make it so that the light falls from the right side and basically darkens the left side. This will create attention on the right eye and also make the highlights in the fur much more natural. I would say that vignette is just as good as a subscription to this channel. Okay, we are getting somewhere, but if you want to make sure your work stands out, let's keep going. We want to draw attention to the face of our animal friend here, but it's a little flat in texture. Open up a structure adjustment and bump it up, maybe like this. This creates a lovely sort of micro contrast, which is something that can also attract the eye. But it does it everywhere, which is not what we want. No worries, we can use a happy little brush to simply mask the effect onto the face here. Don't underestimate this, as it adds a great deal of definition, which is awesome in this case. Now we have 4 more steps, and the last one is the one that actually rounds the image up perfectly. So let's keep going and simply make the photo pop. We need another develop module. Why? Because with it we can bump up the whites. And as we just added the vignette, all the whites are basically on our subject, so they will be enhanced. You can keep an eye on your histogram to see when you go too far, because you don't want things to break off the right-hand side here. But even if you see that an area of your subject becomes sort of blown out, simply use a brush and erase the adjustment from those areas. No problem, it's all non-destructive. Now remember how we added the red into our photo earlier. Notice how the grass here is still very colorful. So we want to make sure we address that. Open up a color adjustment, and because we added the red, we can now bring down the saturation of our yellows. The only color tone left is basically red and orange, which is exactly what we want. Let's make it pop even more. Using another develop module, I'll increase the smart contrast, bring up the highlights and increase the saturation. Sounds like small things, but little by little we make this image pop more and more. The last step is super important, as I mentioned before. You need to clean up your photos. I could have done that at the beginning, but whatever. Look at that grass here. The flies, that weird grass, we don't need this, it's distracting. Let's use this simple erase function and mark all the things we don't want in our photo. Flies and grass and all. Hit erase and look at that before and after. But even better, look at that complete before and after. Stupid amazing, right? Now, if you do like what you see and you like Luminar Neo, you can get it using the link in the description as well as promo code LET'SIMAGE at checkout to save 10%. And of course, I also hope that you did like this editing walkthrough. If you want to learn more about photography and photo editing, make sure you hit that like as well as subscribe button to get inspired when it comes to your own work. And as always, stay safe and have a good one.